Pete, Liz, thanks very much for giving us your time this morning. The first thing I want to ask you, as we look at Ropes Crossing, how would you describe how the congregation has changed since you guys have planted it? I mean, you've got your memories of early days. You're 3 years, 4 years in now. How's
Yes,
it changed?
4 years in.
Yeah.
I guess the big change for us is there is a congregation. Initially there was just us and a few people who were keen with us, probably maybe 5 other adults who were keen. That we met. So we moved in with really there was nobody else, we've gone from basically our family to about 60 people on a Sunday.
Now let me stretch that out, because when you say there was no one else, you're not just saying that there was you guys were actually a very small team, and team of two, so to speak, on your own, but that ministries in that area were very scarce on the ground. I don't think many people know that Ropes Crossing was actually like a field, basically, a new subdivision, and so there wasn't even other churches to rely on.
No, there was a keenness to see the gospel reach the suburb here, but it was pretty clear that without planters moving in and being, I guess, essentially being missionaries and sharing their lives with people, that a church wasn't going to start up here. So there was some other people who were keen to see something happen, but yeah.
The suburb, people only started moving in 2006, and the suburb is quite unique. It's quite different to the suburbs around it. So we saw a need to have a church in the new suburb.
Yeah, in fact, the only way the gospel was going to reach people here was by a church actually starting in this suburb. Such were the sort of social conditions and flows and all that sort of stuff surrounding here.
Strong community within the suburb.
Yeah, well, a couple of we don't have to go into who did what, but a couple of other ministries started at the same time, and I'm sure you were happy for the company. How have they gone? I mean, you're still there. What's happening with those?
They're not the people who were seeking to do things here are not around anymore. One group had a really, really good crack at it, actually. They tried solidly for a year. Probably about 18 months ago, they started, and they did door knocking, community events, and all sorts of other things. And really, only one local person took an interest, and that person was already a Christian and actually going to our church as well. Just wanted to support them.
Yeah.
And in the end, they decided that it wasn't working, and for their family as well, it was taking up too much time and not good for them either. And interestingly, that particular group of people, the leadership, this particular couple, had done church planning in Japan and planted a whole bunch of house churches over there, and their comments to us were that church planting in this area was the hardest thing they'd ever done.
Yeah. Well,
much harder than Japan.
Harder than Japan is a real benchmark. That's
right. Yeah.
I mean, well, listen. That actually is a good thing. I mean, Japan is about 75-78% irreligion. Would you characterise the biggest strain on church planning in Ropes Crossing to be that people are just uninterested, or are they particularly antagonistic, or what are the strains on your area?
I think the single biggest issue in terms of gospel ministry here is there's a background of Christianity, and particularly a background of Roman Catholicism, that leaves people thinking that they're Christian, but actually they have little or no understanding of the Bible. And what that means is that when you go to talk to people, they'll say things like, "Oh, no thanks, we're Catholic." Okay. Or they'll say, or they'll just flat out say, "Oh, no thanks," because they think they already know. But there are also some people within the community who are quite anti-Christian as well, and quite anti-church. And I don't know that we've actually been able to mine to the bottom of what that problem is, but there is a serious issue with, I guess you'd call it secularism, where people are just quite hardened to the gospel, quite generally. So it takes a long time to even get to the situation where you can begin to talk to them about spiritual things. To give you an example of this, I found the first 3 months here after we moved in nearly like it was horrendous, because I found that with somebody who was a Christian, you could sit down with them and at the end of an hour having a coffee, they'd be telling you the hardest parts of their life, you know. But I found that for people who didn't know Jesus, that they do either one of two things. It's either the Mount Druitt thing, where they just dump their whole life on you in the first 10 minutes and tell you everything as a way of testing you to see you'll be their friend, or the opposite, where all you would get was hello, or maybe even less than that, for 3 months or more. So it was the sort of 1 hour versus 3 months rule, and it's taken us years and years and years of patient friendship before we can get to the stage where we say, have you ever read the Bible? Have you ever thought about Jesus? So that's part of the complication as well.
Yeah. Now, I want to just switch over to Liz for a second on this, because I guess you're talking to a lot of men, particularly. I know you're talking to women as well. But Liz has got an ability to tap into the almost legendary ability of wives to talk to other wives, and and over fences and things like that. What's your impression of it, Liz? I mean, where do you find the difficult points communicating with the people in Ropes Crossing?
I found the same, that it takes a long time. I didn't realise it was going to be me that had the ability to meet people. Like when we came here, I'm more shy than Peter, and we thought he would be meeting more people than me, but it became fairly clear that I would be meeting more people. It's been baby steps. Like we have found, decreasingly, but in the beginning, whenever we had things that we wanted to invite people to, the only people that would come would be people that we were friends with. We would invite the whole suburb, like Red Box Chocolate or not. The only people in the beginning that would come would be people that we had spent time with, just being friends with, so spend a lot of time doing that. I mean, now we do have people that just come that we don't know. That's a difference too.
That's actually really helpful, because if I can paraphrase, and feel free to correct me here, what you're talking about almost sounds like we have no cultural background to rely on in Ropes Crossing. Like there is no. It's not that people are necessarily anti-church. There's just non-church. There's just no background for it at all.
They had no experience. I think more than people who think they are Christian but don't really understand it. I think there are a lot more people who just have no interest in it. It's just
and will tell you so. They will say, look, one guy we knocked on his front door and he said, look, I'm not interested in talking about God, but I'm happy to have a chat. So, of course we had a chat. But it takes a long time to get to the stage where people feel
trust.
Yeah.
They trust enough to accept an invitation. Have a conversation.
There's an extreme mistrust of the church. I think some of that is with respect to do with the Catholic Church, but I think some of that is just sort of a street smartness that sort of exists in the western suburbs, where people don't take. There's a suspicion about everything, and especially about religion.
It could also be though that we are new, and like if we had been here for 50 years, we might be trusted, but because we are new and in the beginning we didn't exist, maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah.
Actually, that's another thing worth mentioning. One of the things that I've found, and I mentioned this, for instance, to Bruce Hall, and he looked surprised at the time when I said this, was that in a new community, you have to earn your place. You have to earn your existence, basically. Where if you're the new rector of, or the new senior pastor of an existing church, then people go, oh yeah, fair enough, you're the new senior pastor, because the church has existed, for quite some time. People are quite happy with that. But if you're establishing a new church, then you've actually got to earn your existence in the first place and earn the respect that goes with that. And sort of modern Australian culture or postmodern Australian culture, whatever you want to call it, is such that you're going to have to work hard to do that. People have high expectations.
What gives you the right to start a new church? Who are you? What are you doing here? We live here. We don't really want you here with a church.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a minority, not a majority.
So there's a famous example of this is, well, not famous, but a memorable example of this is that when we first named the church, some people who were part of the church at that stage had a Ropes Crossing Church T-shirt on. And a lady who lived in the suburb, who actually, praise God, has now become Christian, said, "What right have you got to call your church Ropes Crossing Church? Like, you're stealing the suburb name. You shouldn't be doing that." Yeah, and like you just go, what? How does that work? There'll be a Ropes Crossing football team, or there's a Ropes Crossing cafe, and a Ropes Crossing shops, and all of these other things that we would go, yeah, that's fine. But it was an affront to her at the time that we could use that name that belonged to the suburb to put it on the church.
Yeah, they were actually at the point where they did not want their culture claimed by the church.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I guess some of the resistance that we've encountered, I think, goes along with that. You have to earn the respect that you're demanding here. Or, if you want us to take you seriously, then you're going to earn it, and we're going to make it hard for you.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you then. Let me ask you, because you have earned it, clearly. You're there 4 years now, and you didn't arrive with 60 people. So where has the growth come from?
A little while back, I haven't recently done the statistics, but a little while back, about a third of our people had transferred from other churches because they've moved into the area, like from distances away. About a third had been de-churched and went to church for 10, 20 years. And about a third, when you either not yet Christians or new Christians that were coming to church for the first time.
Yeah, so you could say without, I mean, that's really good that you've done the stats, because, that actually allows you to get a sense of, at least allows us to get a sense of exactly where it's coming from. You can say without a shadow of a doubt that a third of the people in church today would just not have been in church if you hadn't provided that opportunity within Ropes Crossing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think that the church planning is still a solid argument for reaching people? I mean, it's been the flavour for a couple of years, and people have sort of got quite heroic and are still quite happy to bang the drum about it. Church planning is the way forward. But you're on the ground. What's your conviction that church planning is the way to go forward?
In a new suburb where there is no church, is the only way forward. The whole suburb wouldn't have organised access to Jesus if there wasn't a church here.
I think that needs to be said. That's the first thing. That without us, there is no organised access to Jesus, and that's why we started here, because there wasn't anything else that was on our list of, of priorities. But there's two other things that need to be said, and that is that I grew up going to an evangelical church, through the 70s and the 80s, and I know lots of people who still go to those churches. And without being rude, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority attitude in many of those churches is not missional. In fact, I feel that it probably is. Okay, that's not to say that there aren't lots of churches having a red hot go at mission. There are, but the prevailing attitude in churches at that time was not missional. It was, if somebody becomes a Christian, that's nice, but that's not what that's not what we're all about. We're all about having a place for Christians to come together, and that's why the church in Australia is in decline, because for 20 years while I went to church, we didn't do that sort of hardcore mission, as far as I could tell. Now,
can I, before you move on to your second point, can I actually say, because I've got a follow-up question. So, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that the future of evangelism in Australia isn't just planting more churches, but it's actually planting the right sort of church. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's the thing. I guess what I was going to go on to say was, if it's all very well to say, well, why don't we just plant more congregations? But if those congregations have the same we'll look after our own people attitude as the churches we've already got, then we're already dead in the water. So what we need is whether they be congregations or churches, things started such that their aim is to reach out into the community and see people become Christians. It's about kingdom growth. And it doesn't matter whether you call that a congregation or a church plant or a parachute drop or whatever.
Or
really,
a new service or whatever. Yeah.
Who cares what it's called? It's got to be about people becoming Christians. Because if it's not about people becoming Christians, then really Christianity in Australia is over. Well, of course it isn't. I mean, God is powerful over all things, and I'm not going to, we don't control that stuff. God does, but I reckon that's where our priority is. The other thing is that, and again, I want to say this respectfully, that there are lots of people who work very hard to see mission happen. For instance, this part of Sydney, in Western Mount Druitt. But as far as I understand it, there are very few churches in our part of Sydney right now. I can count the number of churches in this area that are really having a go at mission on one hand, and that's less than 5 fingers. So if we're going to see mission, at least in this area, and I know in many other areas, then we have to plant new churches, because the old mission, the old strategies, the old churches have gone, they've died. So there has to be new stuff.
Well, it sounds like, again, sensitively we're saying these things and respectfully, that the old model relied very much on its place in the culture because they were there, or there was an expectation that somebody would provide a church or there would be a minister. But if there is no expectation and if there is no pre-existing work, then, why would they want it? So you actually need church planting as a method of breaking into the culture. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, I'd go further than that. I'm saying that some of that work, some of that old work it's died. The churches are no longer there. The ministers have gone. That place in the community is gone. So if you're going to take Christianity into that community, then you're going to have to plant the church. There's no other way of doing it. Now, I know of a couple of people around here who are sort of itinerant evangelists, and there's one guy I know of locally who's just sort of going from house to house and talking to people and praying with them. And that's kind of an alternative method. People try alternative methods in Mount Druitt because it's hard. But at the end of the day, all of that alternative method has got to end up in a group of God's people meeting together, and that is the church. So you're going to be planting a church by mission, which is...
Yeah.
Sorry, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does. Well, listen, guys, I just feel like this has been really excellent. We're really proud and under God, and happy to hear of the work that's going on in Ropes Crossing. I wish you all the best. Thanks very much for being part of today's discussion, and also for giving us the sharp edge, a nice definition of not just planting a church, but what the church actually has to face towards. That's been really helpful. I'll see you guys later.
Okay, thanks very much.